right, Pickle. Let's talk about something else. And I know that there's a certain segment of the population who doesn't like talking about this, but I think we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge what today is. Today is March 11th, and March 11th was, I think, for many people, many Americans, I should say, this was the start of the pandemic.
Yes.
1 year ago. Now, I want to be very clear that I'm not being callous. I'm trying not to be callous. I'm trying not to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Insensitive. Because there were people who were in other countries who were very severely affected. There were people in this country who were very severely affected. I believe we had already had a couple of deaths here in America on March 11th. So I want to be very clear. But I think that March 11th was the day that it really hit home for two reasons. For two reasons.
To the general population.
For two reasons. One, to when the WHO declared it a global pandemic.
Which are two very scary words that we had never really heard
Correct.
before.
And two, it is when sports really started shutting down. Specifically, the night of the 11th was the night that the NBA shut down.
Yes.
And that started that flurry of everything getting canceled. I was going to say a lot of dominoes. Flurry of everything getting canceled. And so we're now a year removed from that. And I think that, looking back, I did something I never do. And that is I went back and I watched an old show. I watched two old shows, by the way. I watched the day we came back, which was a Thursday, Thursday, March 12th.
The first time in the office?
Yes. When we did a show here. And then Friday, March 13th, when we did a show remotely.
Ironically enough, that was definitely Friday the 13th as well.
It was. And I remember thinking that, okay, this is going to be serious because there's a lot of smart people who are saying that it's serious. But I also remember thinking in the back of my mind, all right, we had MERS, we had SARS, we had bird flu, we had all of these things that were supposed to be the next big pandemic.
And they weren't.
Well, now, sadly, there's 500,000 Americans dead. There's countless others impacted. Obviously, our whole lives have been turned upside down. And I think it's also, like I've been thinking about it a lot because, well, I guess I'll show you. There you go.
You got your shot.
Yesterday, I got my first COVID-19 vaccine.
Very, very good.
The fine folks over in Hood County, Granbury, gave me a call, and I got to drive out there to beautiful, beautiful Granbury, Texas. Granbury's a really nice town, by the way.
It is. It's cute.
It's very cute. I was telling my wife that I was like, because I drove out there by myself, and I was like, it's really cute. You'd like it.
You would like it.
Yeah. And I got my jab. I got a shot, and so I've been thinking a lot about the past year, which has been, I think, very trying for a lot of people. I think it's been very emotionally. It had an emotional toll and a physical toll, obviously, but also an emotional toll, a mental toll, and just a societal toll on us. And I'm very thankful for science, and I would encourage you that when it is your time, go get your vaccine. Go get when your number's pulled, go get your vaccine. And my advice for people, because people ask me, how'd you get vaccine? Because I'm 34, I'm relatively healthy. I just signed up everywhere.
Yeah.
I just signed up everywhere, and I was lucky enough to get my name called. My wife also got a shot yesterday, but she is an elementary school teacher.
Yeah.
And so she was able to go and get one as well. And so it's something that's been on my mind a lot. And so I went back and I watched our shows from that day. And we almost never do this. Like, we never go back and watch old shows because I have enough new nonsense to say.
I don't have time really to go do, other than when I'm cutting the stuff. And that's just finding the beginning and the end of it.
And secondly, we almost never play old clips on the show. But let's take a look back a year ago to things that we were thinking back then, because I think it's a little bit illuminating. So let's play clip one real quick.
Okay,
yeah,
here we go.
You've already seen some. I know, like the Ivy League was the first one to just say we're canceling our tournament, and they've canceled all sports for the rest of the year. And that's, I think, another thing worth mentioning, because I mentioned this to my wife today. She goes, she was like, oh, like, do you think this thing's going to be better by, like, next week? And honestly, like, no. Like, we have some precedent here from what you're seeing in Italy and what you're seeing in China and Japan and Korea that, no, this thing doesn't go away very quickly. And we're talking about probably, like, 6 weeks minimum of this thing hanging around and having a serious impact on our way of life. And obviously, this is, I should reiterate in case you're just joining us. So, first of all, I think I nailed it. I did say 6 weeks minimum.
Look, I'm going to go ahead and give myself a pat on the back for that analysis there.
But I think that is telling of where our minds were at that point.
Right.
Which was, we knew it was serious, but I don't think we knew necessarily the long-term gravity of what we were about to enter.
No, and that's something I was going to say earlier, is the moment that will forever be drilled in my mind, that it's one of those things, like, I remember where I was when I got this news was, well, on the 11th, which would have been today, I was actually sideline reporting for ESPN for the conference basketball tournament. So we heard rumblings, but I was busy all day. I was on air. I wasn't really listening. The next day, on the 12th, which would be tomorrow when we came in here, when we were in here all standing in front of a TV out there in front of our desk, and we were watching conference basketball tournaments get canceled after canceled after canceled. That, to me, was the moment when everything sunk in. But, yeah, you get that news, and then 30 minutes later, we're in here on this show going, well, all that just happened, but we can't really survive. What are we supposed to do without sports? There's no way this sticks around that long,
And that's, I think it was, and part of it, I think, is maybe... I think part of it is we didn't necessarily know. And I think the other part of it is we didn't necessarily want to think about it.
No.
Because throughout the course of that program, we didn't even consider the idea of it impacting Texas high school football.
No.
Like, we were just like, well, worst case scenario, it's going to be really bad for the next couple of months, but by the time we get to the fall, like, it'll be entirely normal. And it's like, well, no, obviously now we know that we're still dealing with the ramifications of it. We're still,
Heck, we thought 7-on-7. We thought, well, maybe 7-on-7 won't happen, but we'll be at coaching school in July. There's no way.
Exactly. So I want to go to clip 2. Okay. This is from that same show, from the day, this is March 12th, the day after everything kind of came down and everything was getting canceled as the show was going on. So here's clip 2 from that show. And now what you're seeing is, starting Saturday, it's coming down that Major League Baseball is suspending spring training. So they're not going to play any more baseball. And look, ultimately, we all do have a responsibility, I think, because we're all kind of all in this together, to do those things. Now, I should be clear, based on everything that I've read, and I think what the officials have said, right? This is preventable, right? Wash your hands. If you feel sick, don't go to work. Like, don't be around people. Just do smart things, right? There's not a reason to fear, I don't think. I don't think there's a reason to panic.
Like, you don't need to worry about breathing,
No. There's not a reason to panic. If you just go about these tips of washing your hands and keeping things hygienic and avoiding big crowds and things like that, then eventually this thing, I think, will pass, right? We're resilient people,
right?
Okay, but I would be lying to you if I told you that I don't think this is something we should take seriously.
Seriously, right?
Because it is, and it's probably more important than basketball.
Yes.
So. I mean, yeah, I think that's, I think it. There was never. I don't think there was a reason to panic because I don't think panicking does any good for anybody.
No, because then we all ran out of toilet paper. For what reason was that again?
Yeah,
none.
But I also think that, overall, I think it does lead to the idea again of coming back to the mind frame, the mindset we were in, which was we don't know how long this is going to last, but I don't know if anybody necessarily considered the fact that it would last an entire year.
No.
I think we were thinking like, okay, like. And I don't think we necessarily thought that it would, if we did the things we were supposed to, that it would reach the heights that it did, which is, terribly, terribly sad, and the impact that it did have, and then it still is having. I should say this is not past tense; it's still present tense. But I do think, and I'll just say this, and maybe this is me getting out over my skis and stuff like that. I have been, and I think if you listen to the podcast, I've tried my best to hide it, but I think it's realistic that I have been a worrier. I have been somebody who has been much more concerned about this than I think a lot of maybe other people. You know what I mean? I think if you listen to, perfect example. I think if you listen to Tep and Step, our podcast, when Step and I would go and talk about these things, Step would usually be the glass half full guy.
Yep.
He's generally got a very positive disposition. He likes to think positively about most things. And I was a lot more reticent, a lot more hesitant, like, oh, I don't know, and things like that. Basically over the past couple of months, I have grown more and more optimistic and more positive that this thing is entering its final act. Right. And this thing is, at the very least, ebbing to the point that we're going to be able to impart. Part of it is the vaccines, and part of it is that I think the numbers are coming down and things like that, which is obviously very, very positive. I think we're entering a time when people can be outside more, which I think is ultimately a positive.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? But
especially for the mentally and emotionally thing that we were talking about earlier.
And the thing is, there's so much we didn't know back then. Like, we didn't even, look, here's my mask, right?
Right.
We didn't have any idea about
the fear of
then.
the unknown is worse than absolutely anything.
Right. And so, look, I think 2021 is going to be a lot better than 2020, and that's a real hot take here on Hot Take Tuesday. I'm positive, and I feel like this thing is rounding a curve, and hope, and I'm not a doctor and an epidemiologist, I've said that a million times, but I do think things are rounding a curve. I do think that things are getting better, and
I think the best way to say it is blind faith is what we had, and now we have a little more concrete faith. Because you look back you go through those couple of months at the beginning there, and we're thinking, oh, we must have said it 800 times. If we have to stay in for the rest of March, if we have to stay in for April, then, by May 1st, we're kind of kicking it. We're hitting the end of magazine season. We can make it. And then we realized, okay, June 1st at the latest. And then it just kept going. And that blind faith was like putting your hand on a stove and getting burnt and burnt and burnt again. But like you said, the numbers are helping. The vaccines are helping. So it is still a little bit of blind faith, but you're standing on concrete and not water at that point, or grass and not water.
It's a good way to put it. And it's just, I think it's been a tough year for a lot of people. I think it's been a tough year, personally. It's been tough. Look, perfect example. My in-laws who live in St. Louis, they're coming down next weekend, or next week. They're coming down next week. And it's the first time that Hank's going to have seen those grandparents in 9 months. Yeah. It's been a long time.
It has.
And I think that is a pain that a lot of people share. And it's something that I think there is, maybe that optimism is fueling this, but I think that people see that light at the end of the tunnel. I think they say we can start getting some sense of normalcy back. That doesn't mean going out there and doing whatever you want, I should say. Don't go licking doorknobs. But I do think
if you're dumb enough to lick a doorknob, lick the damn doorknob.
What I'm saying, though, is I do think there's a growing sense of optimism that things are getting better. And I haven't felt that in a long time, and that's something that's positive. Yes. There's one other clip I want to play. This is from the day after. This is when we did our first remote show.
And I look like an idiot.
And we didn't know if it was going to work. So first of all, the fact we were able to get on the air was positive because we were thinking, oh, maybe we have to do a couple of shows remote. A couple of shows remote. Let's roll clip 3. This was from February or March 13th.
Sitting up there. There we go. Right there. In a different room. In a different city.
Yeah.
The Duchess of the Dorks to Ashley Pickle. Hi, Ashley.
Hi. We're doing the darn thing.
Thanks for helping to put this together. Really and truly, Ashley did have a lot to do with this show getting on the air, because right now we are we are taking precautions with COVID-19. And so here we are. We are doing the show remotely. The good news is the fact that you are now hearing us means that this is possible.
Yes.
That's the big win here, is that this means that even if for some reason we needed to be here for 3 months, we shouldn't need to be here for 3 months.
God,
but
I'll go crazy.
If we needed to, if we need to be, practicing social distancing for a number of days, weeks, we can do it, and we can continue to talk nonsense here on Texas Football Today. So,
Hi, welcome back. I'm still crazy.
I'll go crazy.
I'll go crazy.
And I would need to go and look back at when we came back in the studio, but we didn't come back in the studio until after magazine was done.
No, yeah, we did not.
That was our first of basically 3 months, almost 3 months of doing the show remotely. We came back for a little bit. We ended up going back remote, but then we came back in maybe late July, early August.
Yep.
And it's again, I just don't think we could have envisioned in our mind how long this would last. And I'm not sure when it hit me that this is for the long haul. It might have been whenever
it was
my wife's school got canceled for the rest of the school year.
Which
not
was
canceled, but they went remote.
They never went back after spring break, which was right about that weekend. Because I mean, to pull the curtain back, we honestly weren't going to do a show from home on that Friday. We were planning on coming in, but we said, you know what? If we've got this one opportunity, let's try and figure something out.
Yes.
And if it doesn't work, then we address it from there. But that weekend, I went and moved the studio into my house when we left it there for however long.
I think I came up here and I saw you.
Uh-huh.
And that was the last time you and I were in the same room for like 3 months.
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't know, like I'm glad that Hank is the age that he is, that he won't remember this, that I think he'll just kind of remember, I spent a lot more time with mommy and daddy. But I don't know. It's this is something that, again, I feel comfortable talking about now because I do feel like we're heading in a good direction. But I think that, this is one of those things that's going to have those lingering effects and something that we've had to live with. I'm glad that, knock on wood, things are trending in a positive direction. Hopefully we can continue to do that. But it's I don't know.
Yeah,
it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year, and we're thankful for you guys for sticking with us, for dealing with technical issues that we will still continue to have, even though we're back in the studio.
Right.
But it's been. I think this is an opportunity to reflect on what a strange year it was, on what a difficult year it was, on what a tragic year it was, but also to come out at this moment with a renewed sense of hope that we can move past this.
And one other thing that is very specific for people legitimately like my exact age is the fact that so many of my friends and we are in, like, when this started, we were in our first year ever at our full-time jobs. So I have a bunch of friends that are nurses. All of my best friends are nurses. And then I also have a bunch of friends that are coaches and teachers. So for us to go through this in year one, it gives us hope that, you know what, if you can make it through the first year of your career in this, hopefully it's literally nothing but up from here. Hopefully. Knock on wood. We might be cutting this clip next year, and I'm going to be going, I look like a dummy.
It's like, man, we didn't even know the dragons were going to come down here and kill us all.
But we're knocking on wood here and saying, if I can make it through magazine 1 with that, hopefully it gets better from there.
We're gonna yearn for the days of March 11th, 2021. That's when we didn't have any murder hornets.
Anyway. They came back.
Yeah, they came back. Anyway, so that's a look back a year ago.